it's being honored here at the fair.
I'm very happy to be here, yeah.
So you're receiving the Art Wynwood Tony Goldman Lifetime Artistic Achievement Award, and that's named after Tony Goldman, who is a developer who was very active in promoting street art, and both here in Wynwood and in Soho. And I thought maybe we could start with you telling us a little bit about your friendship with Tony and what it means to you to get this honor.
Well, I met Tony in 2009. I knew that he had taken the steps to start bringing art to some properties that he and his family owned in Soho. One that was an amazing place is the corner of Houston and Bowery in New York City, where in the 80s Keith Haring and Kenny Scharf, as well as a number of other people, did murals, and that was done without permission back then, but they owned that, and they wanted first to do a recreation of the Keith Haring mural from the 80s, which had been photographed by Martha Cooper extensively, so they had that recreated. Then Ostramios did a mural there, and then I was the third person to do a mural there. So Tony Goldman was a fan of my work, asked me to do that. Simultaneously, the Wynwood Walls here was, that project was starting, and Tony was curating that along with Jeffrey Deitch, who I assume most of you know has been a major figure in the contemporary art, street art, graffiti crossover since the 80s. He was a big champion of Basquiat and Haring in the 80s. So, you know, Tony was using his resources to provide amazing opportunities for artists, and I felt very fortunate to be, you know, an early part of the evolution of what now has become, I think, in Wynwood, the greatest outdoor gallery in the world. You know, as the Wynwood Walls project progressed, you know, I think the highest caliber artists, from people like Futura, the Ostramios, Howe and Nazem, Fail, Retina, were all brought to work there, and I was honored to have a mural there. As a progression of that project, they opened the Wynwood Kitchen and Bar, and they asked me to design the identity system for the restaurant and bar, but also to do an installation. And I think it's one of the more perfect marriages of art and commerce that I've been involved in. And, you know, let's face it, art and commerce need each other. So they can either be in conflict or in harmony, and it's really nice when they're in harmony. So Tony was very respectful of me as an artist, but also had solid ideas about how he wanted things to work visually. So I appreciated that he was decisive about his own vision, but respectful of mine, and you know, we found solutions that we were both really happy with. So you know, that space is something that, you know, I think is you know, a really nice addition to the Wynwood Walls complex. And since Tony passed away in 2012, which was way too soon, he was really just getting going. His family has taken up the mantle of his vision, and they continue to expand the projects the Wynwood Walls are doing, as well as continuing to do the Houston and Bowery mural in New York.
Yeah, it's really been transformative for street art. Probably through your career, you've seen a lot of change.
Yeah, I have. You know, when I first started coming to Wynwood in 2004, a guy named Darren, aka Books Bischoff, who started a group called Primary Flight, he was working for a place in Fort Lauderdale called Revolution that I designed the logo for the club, and then I did an art installation in there, and he was helping me with that, and he said, hey, you know, we need to get out of Fort Lauderdale and go into Miami and do some street art in Miami. And he said, Wynwood, that's the spot. And we got to Wynwood, and it was abandoned buildings and some drug dealers, basically. And I thought, well, you know, I know that any of my transgressions will be fairly mild compared to the landscape here, but to see how Wynwood has evolved in 10 years is absolutely phenomenal. I think that it's proof that art really makes an impact in neighborhoods. And you know, there have been a lot of discussions about rents going up and things like that, and I do see that there are maybe some issues it creates when a neighborhood develops so quickly. But I do think that, you know, on the positive side, art enriches people's lives, and the quality of the art and the culture that the art has brought to the neighborhood is something that really can't be argued as anything other than phenomenal and beautiful and really positive. I think it's created a template for how art can make a difference. I was used to, for years and years and years, being told that my art was part of the evidence of a neighborhood in decline. Now I'm being accused of being a gentrifier. Make up your minds.
You can't win.
So, yeah, I like to take the more neutral, and it's a term of urban renewal, which is a term I used to use ironically, because I knew that I was perceived more as a force of urban decay. But I think that art has triumphed here.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I also wanted to talk a little bit about another big project of yours. You've gotten a lot of attention for the We the People poster series that you created in protest of the inauguration. I was in Washington for the Women's March, and I could see the posters everywhere. And on ArtNet, you've gotten a lot of attention. We track who are the most searched artists each month. In January, you went from being high 20s, 28, I think, up to number 1. And you were the second most read article on ArtNet News was about the We the People poster series. The only thing that beat you was Botticelli's Venus coming to the US for the first time.
And that has nudity.
So I just wanted to talk maybe a little bit about what inspired that poster series.
Mine's working.
Oh, and just why you think those works are resonating with the public right now.
So, the We the People series that I did was a collaboration with a foundation called Amplifier, the Amplifier Foundation. The founder of Amplifier, Aaron Huey, is a guy who I'd worked with on several Native American rights projects called Honor the Treaties. Aaron is an award-winning photographer who shoots for National Geographic and did an amazing TED Talk about the history of the treaties being broken and the poverty and difficulty of life on the Pine Ridge Reservation. So I have there are a lot of people who make art. They do photography, they make beautiful images, and I appreciate that, but I love Aaron for his absolute dedication to social justice. And when Aaron branched off from just doing the Native American rights and founded Amplifier, initially we were going to work on prison reform, because it's an issue both of us think is important. But then unexpectedly, for us living outside of Florida, Donald Trump won the election. And y'all knew, right? But I'm from South Carolina, so I knew my state was gonna go red. But anyway, in high school I had to get in arguments with people about whether it was okay to put a Run Jesse Run bumper sticker on your front bumper. So I'm not fucking kidding. So anyway, but they're good people and bad people everywhere. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Florida. or South Carolina. But the shock of Trump winning the election made Aaron and I decide that we really wanted to make a series of images leading up to the inauguration that were about embracing humanity, about saying that it's not the American values that we believe in to promote scapegoating, fear, division, sexism, racism, xenophobia. And a lot of people want to argue with me about, well, those weren't the impulses driving every single Trump voter. And that may be the case, but a lot of those things were normalized in a way that I had never seen before and that I found incredibly disturbing. Thank you. So what Aaron and I decided was that we just wanted to make a series of images that showcased in a positive way both the people who had been most attacked and disparaged by Trump, so blacks, Latinos, Muslims, the Native Americans, the gay and lesbian community, and then have those have taglines that basically were pretty much unassailable. So the idea of "We the people are greater than fear," "We the people defend dignity," we the people protect each other. Those were ideas that we thought, when we've been living with division as the norm, I don't think those are divisive messages. And so the hope was that people would like them enough to support our Kickstarter, and we'd be able to run an ad in the Washington Post that would come out Inauguration Day or the day of the Women's March, the day after the inauguration, and then for us to create some posters that we could disseminate in DC. Well, our goal for the Kickstarter was $60,000. We ended up being supported and raising by way more people than we thought it would connect with, and raising almost $1.4 million.
That's awesome.
So we ran ads in the Washington Post, USA Today, the New York Times. We printed 10,000 posters for LA, 10,000 posters for DC, and we made the free downloads for people. And people will accept free stuff pretty easily. So it didn't surprise me that the posters, when they were handed out, went over fairly well. But what really blew my mind was to see the number of people who took our free downloads of the images and made signs which showed up not just in major cities in the US where women's marches took place, but in places like Mexico City, Berlin, Paris, London, and it really was proof that imagery that crystallizes a concept can be used as a powerful tool and a symbol. And I'm striving for that kind of resonance with every image I make, but it doesn't actually connect that way very often. The Hope poster I did for Obama was one of those things, and I really thought that was most likely a once-in-a-lifetime thing, but We the People seem to be working in the same way. And the good news is, now we still have several $100,000 left to facilitate more projects for We the People. So, yeah, be on the lookout.
Congratulations. I did want to talk a little bit about the Hope poster, because the New Yorker called it the most efficacious